How is it going, guys? It's Kevin from SubiSpeed. Today we are continuing on with the modifications for the WRX. We're going to be swapping out the suspension system. We currently have the FactionFab FR-Spec coils on the car, which are a nice inexpensive option, but we're going to be upgrading to the Ohlins Road Track coilovers, which are arguably one of the best quality kits for this car. Just taking a look at these, you can tell that they are super high quality. You're not only getting the best material, but also the highest quality ride comfort and performance on and off the track. These feature an inverted monotube design with 34-way adjustable damping through their unique dual flow valve system. On the front, you've got a knob for adjustment on the bottom of the shock, and then for the rears, the knob is on top. You also have adjustable cam plates for the front, and then spring rates for the front are 550 pounds per inch, and then 400 in the rear. Now, obviously, they come disassembled like you saw, so we're gonna have to put everything together before we get them installed on the car. Now, I'm not gonna go through all of the tools that are needed, but I will list everything below that we use. If you guys are interested, you can check out below, but let's get this put together, and then we can get it installed on the car. We're gonna assemble one of the front coilovers first. So I've got the dust boot here. I cut off 20 millimeters off the bottom. So we'll slide this on, like so. And then we can slide the spring on. Then we've got a spring perch here. And then there is a bearing spacer that'll go on there. And then we can take the camber plate and that'll slide on. And we can thread on the top nut to secure that camber plate in place. Once you have the fronts put together, we're going to set the spring preload, which is suggested to be 2 millimeters. So you're gonna measure from the top of the spring to the bottom with everything loose. So I've got the locking collar off, and this is basically the starting point. So I'm going to spin the spring perch here up 2 millimeters, and then I'll lock it into place with this locking collar. And then for the ride height, we are going to loosen up these 2 Allen bolts to allow us to spin the mount on the bottom here to adjust the ride height. And we're gonna set that to 273 millimeters, which is the standard setting that Ohlins recommends. For the rears, it's basically the exact same process, except the lengths and measurements are a little bit different. So again, we've got the dust boot. Then we'll toss the spring on. And then gotta take this adjuster off here. Put the spacer on, along with the top hat, another spacer, then thread on the nut, get everything tightened down, and we will head over to the car. So Starting on the front passenger side, you're gonna want to remove the 12mm bolt that's holding the brake line to the strut. Once you have that out of the way, we can release that to make sure it doesn't get snagged. And then we'll move over to this side where we need to unclip the ABS line. Once we've made sure those lines are out of the way, we've got two 19mm bolts and nuts to remove that are holding the hub in place. This is going to release the hub from the strut, and then we can move up top to release the strut from the body of the car. Now this top one here is going to be a camber bolt, so you may want to pay attention to the markings on the head of the bolt to kind of get a reference point to reinstall it once you put the new coilover in place, even though you are going to need to get a alignment once you're done with this. With those three nuts off of the top hat, we can pull the old one out. The new one slides right into place. Essentially just the reverse process, get everything lined up. Now we can move down to the bottom and get the hub in place. I've got a jack underneath the control arm to make sure it's raised to the right height to get the holes to line up. So we'll just slide it into place and get the bolts reinstalled. Now for the top bolt here, you can see there's nowhere to put the ABS line currently, so Ohlins has these brackets that we'll install before we put the nut on. And that'll be where the ABS line clips into place. Like so. So now I just need to get the two bolts torqued down, get the brake line reinstalled, and we should be set. So once you get these torqued down, make sure you've got the nuts on the top hat or camber plate torqued down as well, and we can move to the rear. The rear of the car is pretty simple. Everything is connected to the lower control arm. There's gonna be three different bolts that we remove. The first one is gonna be this bolt here. That's gonna be a 17mm that's holding the shock to the lower control arm. And then we've got the end link here. That is a 14mm. And then we're gonna be removing either this bolt or this bolt that's holding the lower control arm to the subframe, or the hub. That's gonna be a 17mm. I'm gonna be removing this one here. That's just always what I've done. It really doesn't matter which one you remove. Once you've got those bolts out, you can grab the lower control arm and pull it down out of the subframe. And then we can go up top inside the trunk and release the two bolts that are holding the coilover or strut in place. Inside the trunk, underneath the trunk trim, you're gonna see two 14mm nuts that are holding the strut in place. Once we get those nuts off, we'll be able to drop the strut down and remove it from the lower control arm. With those nuts out of the way, we can lower the control arm down and should be able to pull this right out. Now it's just the reverse process to install the new Ohlins. So we'll carefully guide this in here and line it up with the holes. And then we'll go inside the trunk and get those nuts on. Before we get the lower control arm back into place, make sure you insert the spacers into your new coilovers. Then we'll slide this back into the subframe, making sure everything is aligned. Now we just need to get all the bolts back into place. You may need to put a jack underneath the lower control arm to raise it to the correct height to align the holes. All of the torque specs I will leave in the description if you guys are interested in what you need to torque these down to. That pretty much wraps it up for the install, guys. A couple things to note. One, you do need to take the car out for an alignment once you get these installed, as with any time you install new suspension components. And two, if you happen to need to adjust the ride height, you can do so by, in the front, you loosen the two bolts holding the lower mount together, and then in the rear, you just loosen the collar, and then you use the spring perch collars to spin the strut into or out of that mount to raise or lower the car. Each rotation is going to affect the ride height by 2 millimeters. I will leave a link if you guys are interested in picking this kit up for yourself down in the description, along with all of the tools and the torque specs. If you guys have any questions at all, let me know. And also, let me know what you guys want to see done to this next. We need to get some new wheels on here, so give me some suggestions on that. And we'll probably do a review on these coilovers sometime in the future. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.